This video is about how to solve linear equations. So linear equations are equivalent equations if they have the same solution or solutions. To change or solve an equation into an equivalent equation, think of an equation as having two sides that need to balance. So in order for a scale to balance, whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side as well. So when you solve, you need to isolate a variable by performing an inverse operation. Inverse operations can be thought of as opposite operations. So for example, the opposite of addition is subtraction. We use inverse operations to solve a problem and get a variable by itself. So let's look at some examples. So in the first equation, we have x minus 3 equals 5. So there is two sides of this equation, before the equal sign and after the equal sign. So I'm going to draw a line through it to split my sides. So whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So if we have minus 3, in order to get x by itself, we are going to add 3 to both sides. And once we do that, the minus 3 and plus 3 cancel out, and we're left with x equals 8. In our next one, we have x plus 7 equals negative 2. So I'm going to draw my line to split the two sides. This time, because it's addition, the inverse is subtraction. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides, or sorry, subtract 7 from both sides. So the 7's cancel out, leaving us with x. Negative 2 minus 7 gets us x equals negative 9. In our next problem, we have 6x equals 48. So when 6 is written next to x like that, that is multiplication. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we are going to divide by negative 6 on both sides. When we do that, the negative 6 cancels out. We're left with x equals 48 divided by negative 6 is negative 8. In our next one, we have x over 7 equals negative 3. That means this is division. So the opposite of division is multiplication. So we're going to multiply both sides by 7. So we multiply by 7 on both sides. The 7's cancel out. So we're left with x equals negative 7 times 3, which is 21. In the last one, we have a fraction. 3/4 x equals 12. So in order to get rid of our fraction, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. That means we are going to flip the fraction. So we're going to multiply by 4/3. So the fractions cancel out with each other. So we multiply by 4/3 on both sides. The 4/3 cancel out. X equals 12 times 4 is 48. Divided by 3. So we get x equals 16. So let's practice some more equations. So in number 1, we have x minus 9 equals negative 13. So we can split our two sides. Because it's minus 9, the inverse is to add. So we're going to add 9 to both sides. And we get x equals negative 4. In number 2, we have 14 equals w plus 5. So even though the variable is on the other side, we still want to get that variable by itself. So the number with the variable, the w, is positive 5. So the opposite of plus 5 is minus 5. So we're going to subtract 5 from both sides. 9 equals w. In number 3, we can simplify this. Remember, when there are two negatives in a row, it becomes a plus. So we have w plus 10 equals negative 12. We can subtract 10 from both sides, so w equals negative 22. In number 4, we have 5.9 equals negative 11.3 plus g. So we can add 11.3 to both sides. So we get 17.2 is equal to g. Now let's try some with multiplication and division. So in number 5, we have 11f equals 44. So 11f means 11 times f. So we are going to divide. So we divide both sides by 11. And f equals 4. In number 6, we have c divided by 3.5 equals 13.2. So the opposite of division is to multiply by 3.5 on both sides. So we get c equals 46.2. In number 7, we have y divided by negative 8 equals negative 5. So when we multiply, we need to keep that negative with the 8. So we're going to multiply both sides by negative 8. We're left with a positive y equals negative 5 times negative 8, which is positive 40. In number 8, we have negative v equals 14. Remember, negative v is the same as negative 1v. So we're going to divide by negative 1 on both sides, and we get v equals negative 14. Last, we're going to practice with getting rid of fractions. Remember that dividing with fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So in number 9, we have 3 over 4k equals 12. So we can multiply by 4/3. So you can use your calculator, or we can put 12 over 1. So 12 times 4 is 48. 1 times 3 is 3. So that reduces to k equals 16. In number 10, we want j to be positive. So we're going to multiply by negative 4/7. So we flip the fraction but keep the negative with it. So j equals, when we multiply 30 times negative 4 is negative 120. 1 times 7 is 7. 120, negative 120 is not divisible by 7, so we're just going to leave that as a fraction. Next, we're going to look at solving two-step equations. So in a two-step equation, you want to add or subtract before you multiply, divide, or multiply by the reciprocal. So in number 11, we have 2x plus 5 equals 17. So our first step is to add or subtract the number away. So because we have plus 5, we are going to subtract on both sides. And we're left with 2x equals 17 minus 5 is 12. Then to get the x by itself, we would divide both sides by 2. So x equals 6. In number 12, we have 13 equals negative 7 minus 15. So because of the minus 15, first we're going to add 15 to both sides. 28 equals negative 7x. The opposite then of multiplication would be to divide by negative 7. So x equals negative 4. In number 13, our first step would be to add 2 to both sides. So we have y over 3 equals negative 6. Y over 3, remember, is division. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3. So y equals negative 18. In number 14, negative g over 5 plus 11 equals 7. So first thing I want to do is move this 11. So I'm going to subtract 11 from both sides. G over negative 5 equals negative 4. To get g by itself, we would multiply both sides by negative 5. So g equals 20. In number 15, our first step to get x by itself would be to subtract 12 from both sides. 8 equals 2/3 x. To get rid of a fraction, remember we multiply by the reciprocal, so I'm going to multiply by 3/2 on both sides. Remember we can write it 8/1. So we get x equals 3 times 8 is 24, over 2 times 1 is 2. So x equals 12. In number 16, we have 1/4 x minus 7 equals negative 15. Our first step would be to move the 7, so we're going to add 7 to both sides. 1/4 x is equal to negative 8. To get that x by itself, we multiply by the reciprocal, 4/1. So we get x equals negative 32. In number 17, negative x plus 18 equals 100. So our first step would be to move the 18, so we're going to subtract 18 from both sides. Negative x equals 82. Remember that this negative is like a -1, so we're going to divide by -1 on both sides. X equals negative 82. In number 18, we have negative 4.3x plus 18.7 equals negative 43.1. So now, in order to get x by itself, we are going to subtract 18.7 from both sides. Negative 4/3 x is equal to negative 61.8. Then we can divide both sides by negative 4.3. So when we divide, we're going to round, so x is 14.37. In number 19, in order to solve for m, our first step would be to add 8.9 to both sides. 5.25m is equal to 23.1. We're going to divide by 5.25. So when we divide, we get m is 4.4.